Now that we have talked about identifying main ideas, now we are going to talk about how to identify supporting details. So as we have learned earlier, in a paragraph or in a text, normally we will have a main idea, and then the main ideas will be supported by the supporting details. There are different types of supporting details, and supporting details is included in a writing in a paragraph for the purpose of supporting the main ideas. So when we write, we don't just simply put the main idea as the main point, but we support our main point with the supporting details. We justify our main point with the supporting details. And there are different types of supporting details that we may use in our writing, or there are different types of supporting details that we could find in a text, in a paragraph, or in each of the paragraph in an article. So examples could be a type of a supporting detail. So the same goes for illustrations, definitions, statistics, testimonies, research findings, observations, personal experience, and historical data. So these are all examples of supporting details that you might find in a writing that would support the main idea or the main point. Examples, normally when we have examples, it is examples given in a reading text to explain the topic sentence, to explain the main idea of the paragraph more effectively. And it can be brief, it can be elaborate, it can be long or short. And the keywords would be, for example, for instance, in particular. So those kind of words would suggest, would precede an example. Illustrations. So when you have an illustrations is to explain in detail. You give an expression clearly or vividly or precisely on the main idea. For example, if the main idea is talking about your trip to the Perhentian Island, for example, and then you illustrate your experience. So you give a vivid explanation or on what the place is like, the color of the beach, the color of the sands, the view, everything. So that is illustration. You try to illustrate like you are doing a painting. So you describe vividly, clearly to the audience what the place or the situation or the thing is like. So that is an illustration. So it is a type of supporting details to support the main point. So illustrations are introduced in paragraphs using expressions such as, for example, for instance, or could be the phrase, an illustration of this is, or a case point is. So those would be the phrases that you use to introduce illustrations as your supporting details. Definition is when you give an explanation of a term, an idea or a concept. For example, when you compare similar subjects, when you focus on key differences between the subject, when you are giving examples in defining something. So when you are giving a definition, then it is a definition. So it is a type of supporting detail. Statistics can be collections, can be classification, can be analysis, can be interpretation, can be an inference. So it refers to data, it refers to information, it refers to factual evidence, it refers to figures or numbers or any other details. So that would be statistics. Um, so a statistic is something that is normally factual. So you can verify. For example, when you give a percentage, it is a fact and people can verify. So if in a reading text you have a fact given, for example, a percentage number of people died because of COVID, so this is something that you can verify. You can check whether it is true or not true. So when you have statistics, it makes your writing, or it makes the article uh, it makes it more convincing and better. When you have testimonies, so you know what a testimony is. It is an acknowledgement or authentication of a fact. For example, you can give your point of view of how you have experienced this or that product, or this or that particular experience event that you have been through. So you can give what you think about something, so that is your testimony. Research findings, so it is basically a finding of a research that you get from a journal article. Normally with research finding, you have keywords such as this study tells us that. The research finding of this study implicates that, or you can also name the researcher of the research. For example, if the researcher is called Einstein, for example, Einstein, 2011 in bracket, so that is the citation, found that um, something. So you can complete the sentence. And your observation could also be a supporting detail. So observation can be anything. It can be what you see, if you're talking about food or recipe, what you smell, what you touch, what you hear during the event, the food that you taste. So those are observations. What you see, what you smell, all your senses, your touch, what you hear, and what you taste. You can also give your personal experience as a supporting detail, or you could also see personal experience as a supporting details in a paragraph. So personal experience is something that you have gained, or people or the author have gained from doing something in a period, over a period of time. And lastly, you have historical data, which includes information about events and people in the past, because it is historical. Um, so normally when you have historical data in your writing, you are trying to predict what would happen in the future. So that is why you tell people what this is what happened in the past. So the same thing could happen in the future if we don't take appropriate actions now. So historical data can be a type of supporting detail. When you are reading a text, it is quite easy to look for the supporting details. If it is a good writing, most of the time you'll have these cues, the signal words. For example, first, second, third, furthermore, moreover, next, also, finally, um, um, for example, for instance, to be specific, that is, this means a case in point, to illustrate, to explain. So this would signal details in a piece of writing, in a paragraph or in an article. Not all paragraph, however, will use signal words, but that doesn't mean locating the supporting detail is difficult. If we take a look at these paragraph from the National Geographic News, so we can see that the first part of the paragraph here, this is the main idea or the main point, where it says established by the United Nations Cultural Division. UNESCO World Heritage designations highlight and help protect historic neighborhoods, archaeological sites, and structures of outstanding universal value around the globe. So that is what the United Nations UNESCO does, which is to protect historical places. And this is the example given. So this is the supporting detail to further describe the main point. So it says here as an example, but there is no keywords, there is no signal words, but it is a type of supporting detail. Edinburgh's old and new towns added to the list in 1995 helped the city attract around 5 million visitors annually. And then there is the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, brings in 2 million people. And such popularity brings an injection of energy and economic benefit. But with a resident population of just 26,000 people, staggering numbers of visitors make the city's inner core one of the worst hotspots for over-tourism globally. So you can see examples is given as a type of supporting detail. For example, the example is Edinburgh's old and new town. So here in the main point it says historic neighborhoods, and the example given is the place Edinburgh's old and new towns. And then statistics were also given. For example, in 1995, so this is a statistic in which you can check whether it is correct or incorrect. And then there is another statistic, 5 million visitors annually every year. And then and the statistic here could also be a historical data. So because it happened in 1995, and another statistic would be 26,000 people. So um, these are all supporting details that you can see to support the main idea. And the last sentence here, staggering numbers of visitors make the city's inner core one of the world's hotspots. So this is the opinion of the author. Because the author says that because of this huge number of visitors, it caused the city's inner core becoming worst because too many people, or we call it as over tourism. So this is what we call as supporting detail, observations, or personal experiences. So that is how you can find supporting details in a writing. And when you are writing yourself, you also could use these types of supporting details to support your main ideas. And in a reading text, when you are looking for information for your assignments or presentations, you can look for examples, illustrations, definitions, statistics, testimonies, observations, and other types of supporting details to use to support your points in your presentations or your points in writing. So that is all about supporting details and main ideas. Hopefully this will help you in having a better reading skills in identifying main ideas and supporting details.